will be men make better leaders than women. We have our two parties ready, Council of Leaders and Bias Breakers. Please raise your hand if you're all here. Okay, thank you very much. All right. Okay, so before I commence, I would like to just employ you all to honor the guidelines that was presented to you before the debate. And the guidelines, yes, honor the guidelines, please. Also, well, with regards to respect, everything has been going good so far. Let us continue. Let us continue the decorum that is being practiced here within this debate. All right, so first I would like to start. I would like to offer the floor to the affirmative side of the Council of Leaders, the Honorable Minister of Lucky Charms. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Mr. Speaker and fellow members of the House. We stand today to defend the proposition that men make better leaders than women. Leadership at its core demands the ability to command, take decisive actions, and maintain authority in high-pressure situations. Mr. Speaker, historically and globally, men have dominated leadership roles with their natural assertiveness, risk-taking, and competitive drive aligning seamlessly with the challenges of leadership roles. For instance, men account for 89.4% of Fortune 500 CEOs, showcasing their ability to ascend and thrive in competitive and high-stakes environments. This dominance reflects not societal bias, but the alignment of intrinsic male traits such as decisiveness and strategic thinking with the demands of leadership. Furthermore, studies have shown that men are more willing to embrace calculated risk, an essential quality for guiding organizations and nations through uncertain times. Their ability to make tough decisions under pressure often correlates with the success of their teams and enterprises. It is also important to recognize that men's leadership extends beyond the corporate world into other spheres, including politics, science, and the military. Leaders such as Winston Churchill, Nelson Mandela, and Steve Jobs have driven transformative change, reshaping the world through their vision and strategic decision making. These examples underscore the long-standing tradition of men excelling in roles that require innovation, resilience, and decisive leadership. Historical patterns reveal that when the stakes are highest, society often turns to men to lead the charge. Mr. Speaker, critics may argue that men's leadership is marked by aggression or by arrogance, but these traits are often misinterpreted. In practice, they translate to confidence and assertiveness, qualities necessary to inspire and lead large teams. Across history, male leaders have driven revolutions, shaped nations, and redefined industries. Moreover, women may excel in interpersonal skills or moral sensitivity, leadership often demands qualities like strategic dominance and the ability to prioritize outcomes over emotions, traits more commonly found in men. Your position may highlight the strides that women have made in leadership. While these accomplishments are commendable, they remain exceptions rather than the norm. Leadership, as observed in the corporate and political world, requires a blend of authority and command that men have historically displayed more consistently and effectively. Finally, consider the broader societal outcomes tied to male-dominated leadership. Studies show that under male leaders, competitive industries and nations often achieve significant growth, innovation, and resilience in crises. The consistency with which men rise and excel in leadership roles speak not just to opportunity, but to the alignment of their intrinsic traits with the demands of these positions. Today, we will build on these points and further showcase why men, by their inherent traits and proven track record, continue to be better leaders. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister of Lucky Charms, for your contribution. We now proceed on a 2-minute intermission where we will have the introduction from the bias breakers. the representative of Equal Opportunity South. We have less than 30 seconds till we resume. Okay, now we now resume. We now resume to the second introduction by the bias breakers. Representative of Equal Opportunity South, you now have the floor.
Good evening, Mr. Speaker, my good people of the House, and members of the government. Contrary to what was said by the Council of Leaders, we, the opposition, would like to state that leadership is a human endeavor defined by qualities like vision, resilience, emotional intelligence, and the ability to inspire and motivate others. As our name suggests, we are here to break biases and proclaim that leadership is not and should not be confined to the boundaries of gender. To claim that men inherently make better leaders than women in this day and age is to ignore the complexity and diversity of what makes someone an effective leader. Men are not better than women, but in fact, they are equal. Leadership exists across all walks of life, from the parent guiding their child to the manager nurturing a team, to the visionary transforming a nation. Leadership is about humanity's shared ability to adapt, connect, and drive progress. History shows us great leaders of all genders, but history is also littered with examples of poor leadership by both men and women. This teaches us one crucial truth. Leadership is not determined by gender, but by a person's character, capabilities, and the impact they have on those they lead. Today, we argue that to tie leadership to one gender is not only flawed, but counterproductive. This narrow perspective undermines the potential of individuals and the power of diverse leadership. Let us move beyond outdated assumptions and focus on what truly defines leadership: the human ability to connect, innovate, and inspire. Some people still believe that men make better leaders. However, gender does not factor into what makes a great leader. No matter which side the gender disparity gap favors in leadership roles, it is an ongoing issue that men and women simply cannot find balance. It is shown historically that one gender always seems to be taken away from the other in reference to leadership roles, and that women and men have been pitted against one another in the race to success. Gender equality activist Shirley Zales emphasized the importance of gender equality going both ways in leadership roles. She once said, when we make the invisible visible, it becomes clear that gender parity in leadership roles is not just a woman's issue, but it is a human one. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much for your contribution. Okay, so we will now proceed on a 2-minute intermission where we will resume to the first rebuttal from the Council of Leaders. Thank you. We have 30 seconds till the first rebuttal. I now call on the Honorable Minister of Cookie Crisp to the first rebuttal. Honorable Minister, you have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, I am here to argue based on biological, physiological, statistical grounds to show why males make better leaders than women. Men and women are biologically wired differently, and this influences their leadership styles. According to evolutionary psychology, men have evolved to be more forceful and competitive attributes that are frequently associated with effective leadership. They have high levels of aggression and risk-taking behaviors which are often beneficial in competitive environments. According to a Harvard Business Review, male risk-taking tends to increase under stress, whereas women tend to decrease. When examining leadership roles, the statistic overwhelming shows that men dominate position of power. Men assertive competitive approaches are often more successful in climbing the ranks of power in traditionally male-dominated industries. An example of this is Nelson Mandela's role in the anti-apartheid campaign and leadership of the African National Congress resulted in his incarceration incarceration in 1962. After 27 years in prison, Mandela was released and became South Africa's first black president to contribute to the end of the apartheid. Similarly, as a leader in the American civil rights movement, Martin Luther King faced numerous challenges, including arrest, threat to his life, and hostility. His leadership during events like the 1963 March on Washington, as well as his desire for racial equality, made him a target for violence resistance, contributing to the passage of landmark civil rights legislation in the US. Men typically take a more hierarchical approach to leadership, which gives clarity, discipline, and efficiency, particularly in fast-paced situations. According to research, hierarchical leadership system facilitates fast decision making since power is obvious and decisions may be made faster. This structure is especially useful in crisis situations. According to a study published in the Journal of Applied Psychology, female leaders excel in emotional intelligence and teamwork, whereas male leaders suppress women in decision making speed and strategic risk taking. In this apparent that men have dominated nations and institutions, and in many cases their leadership has resulted in significant socio-economical achievements. The history of men-dominated leadership is filled with examples of men making difficult decisions that resulted in significant changes and victories for their countries and organizations. In a nutshell, while both men and women are capable of leadership, statistical evidence, psychology studies, and historical precedents strongly imply that men make better leaders than women. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister of Cookie Crisp, for your contribution. We will now proceed on a 2-minute intermission where we will resume with the second rebuttal from the bias breakers. Thank you. Thirty seconds. We now resume with the second rebuttal from the representative of inclusivity from the bias breakers. You now have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Let us address the common arguments presented by those in the government who claim men are better leaders than women. Leadership is often equated with traits stereotypically associated with men, such as decisiveness, aggression, and charisma. but these qualities do not define leadership in its entirety. History offers contrasting examples. Nelson Mandela's charisma is celebrated as a hallmark of good leadership, while Adolf Hitler's equally strong charisma is viewed as destructive. This reveals a bias. When these traits work, they are praised. When they don't, they are dismissed. Effective leadership goes beyond such narrow definitions. Traits like empathy and self-awareness, often in strong women, are equally vital. True leadership requires a balance of qualities from across the gender spectrum, emphasizing adaptability, collaboration, and emotional intelligence to succeed in diverse contexts.
Our opponents may point to the historical dominance of men in leadership roles as proof of their superiority. It's true that history celebrates many male great leaders, but let's take a moment to critically examine this narrative. History has been just that, his story. For centuries, men have controlled fields like history, education, literature, and government, shaping the stories we tell. Women's contributions, though significant, have often been ignored. Until the women's suffrage movement of the 1900s, many women couldn't even vote, let alone lead. Yet, despite these barriers, we see extraordinary examples of women in leadership, Florence Nightingale's revolutionizing healthcare, Marie Curie breaking ground in science, Rosa Parks spearheading civil rights, and political figures like Margaret Thatcher and Queen Elizabeth proving their mettle on the world stage. Imagine how much more women could have achieved if equal opportunities were given, Mr. Speaker. Meanwhile, countless male leaders, good and bad, dominate our textbooks. Today, in 2024, it's time to reframe leadership. Leaders like Nelson Mandela, Barack Obama, and Malala Yousafzai show us that effective leadership transcends gender. It's about resilience, vision, and the ability to inspire. Leadership is not about historical dominance, but human potential.
The government claims that men's authoritative, task-focused leadership.
Representative, may I ask who is speaking?
Vandini,
Um, who was the person appointed to do the rebuttal?
there were two persons.
Okay, so according to the guidelines, if you're doing that, if you're passing on to the other person, you need to inform the speaker before you do that. You
Okay,
understand?
understood. Understood. My
All right.
apologies.
Okay, so who will be speaking right now?
I am passing on to Vandini to speak.
All right. All right, the time may resume.
The government claims that men's authoritative, task-focused leadership style is more effective. Yet, research tells a different story. Diverse leadership styles, such as the collaborative and transformational approaches often associated with women, consistently deliver better outcomes. Modern leadership thrives on inclusivity, empathy, and teamwork, qualities where women frequently excel. Studies show that organizations with women in leadership positions achieve superior financial and organizational results. This does not mean one style is inherently better than the other. Leadership is dynamic and context dependent, requiring adaptability to the need of the team and situation. By embracing leaders with diverse strengths, perspective, and approaches, society unlocks greater innovation, resilience, and success. Limiting leadership to a single gender not only undermines this potential, but misrepresents what true leadership entails. I'm passing on to Liz.
Now, to the key word I would like us to focus on in that statement, men make better leaders than women. The word better. We are here to argue that no gender is
Thank you very
inherent.
much, Representative of Inclusivity. Your time has ended. Okay, we now have a 2-minute intermission where we will resume with the conclusion from the Council of Leaders. Thank you very much. 30 seconds till we resume. We resume with the conclusion from the Council of Leaders. The Honorable Attorney General, you have the floor.
Mr. Speaker, I realize I have 5 minutes speaking time, so I'll try to utilize all 5 minutes. Now, Mr. Speaker, whilst my job here today is to conclude this debate, I realize that I need not to. My colleagues in government, they literally made my case for me. However, the taxpayers are paying me to do a duty. I'll do that today. Men make better leaders than women. Now, I know my friends on the other side, they would like to convince you otherwise. However, history and data has shown that men are more effective when they are placed in the leadership positions. Now, they even went on to state, Mr. Speaker, that men and women are wired the same. No, they said that men and women are equal. Mr. Speaker, the last time I sat in a biology class, they taught me that men and women are wired differently. Secondly, if men and women are so equal, because that's a point there is as well, why is it that every time a woman in authority does something, they require special recognition? We have to recognize the first female prime minister. We have to recognize the first female police commissioner. We have to recognize the first female president. Men have been doing these jobs since time immemorial, and we haven't been asking for any special attention. We do the job and life goes on. So, Mr. Speaker, I'll just touch on 4 points to conclude, because as I said, my colleagues, they literally made my case to me. I don't need to go into long depth. So history would show that many societies, they have been patriarchal, meaning that men have always been in position of power. That is history. We cannot erase history. We cannot change it. All right? We have men in high political offices, which is why America, they cannot vote in a female president as yet. Okay? We have men in high corporate positions. It is why most CEOs, most general managers, most chairmen, that is where the word chairman comes for. A man has always been in power, right? It is against this backdrop that men are naturally suited for leadership positions, right? Due to their long-standing presence in these roles. These experiences, because experience is the best teacher, translates into better decision-making capabilities and a deeper understanding of leadership dynamics. Point number 2, men are naturally better risk takers, and they are better at making decisions when they're back against the wall, right? They tend to be more assertive and willing to take risks compared to women. These, my friends on the other side, they just don't grasp this concept at all. This assertiveness can be viewed as an asset in high-stakes situations where you have literally 2 seconds to make a choice, 10 seconds to make a choice. You need to erase the emotion and put in the logic into it. We can look at leadership styles as well too. Male leaders, they often adopt a more directive style, which can be effective in certain environments, particularly those requiring clear authority and control. In contrast to women now, their collaborative approach may not always align with the needs of fast-paced or competitive settings where decisive action is necessary. And finally, representation in high-level positions. Lord have mercy. This one will ruffle some feathers. If women were equally capable leaders, they would occupy similar numbers of high-level positions as men do. Thus, their scarcity, they suggest differences in capabilities or societal acceptance of male leadership over female. Once again, it is why the United States cannot vote in a female president as yet, and why Trinidad and Tobago only had 1 female prime minister. So, Mr. Speaker, as I close my conclusion, because like I said, I won't be long. I just like to call some names. Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Barack Obama, Donald Trump, Nelson Mandela, Dr. Keith Christopher Rowley, and Patrick Manning. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you for your contribution. We will now proceed to a 2-minute intermission where we will resume for the conclusion from the bias breakers. Thank you. We now resume with the representative of Equity North from the bias breakers for the second conclusion. You now have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The government claims that men are better leaders than women, but this argument fails to recognize that effective leadership is defined by individual qualities, not gender. Both men and women possess unique strengths that make them equally capable of excelling as leaders. Firstly, let us consider the data. Studies by Catalyst show that women are often rated higher in critical leadership skills like collaboration, empathy, and mentorship, which are vital in today's workplace. For instance, according to the Pew Research Center, in the US, women in leadership roles are viewed as better at creating respectful and inclusive workplaces. 43% of respondents rated women higher compared to just 5% for men, and mentoring younger employees 33% for women versus 9% for men. Mr. Speaker, at the same time, men are often recognized for traits like decisiveness and risk taking, as highlighted in leadership research. These are equally valuable, particularly in high stakes environments. A study by the Pew Research Center notes that men are more likely to be perceived as better at negotiating profitable deals, with 28% of respondents citing men compared to 9% for women. However, the real insight lies in the fact that these differences are compatible. When men and women lead together, they create balanced teams that harness diverse strengths to solve complex problems. The McKinsey Women in the Workplace report underscores this, shows that companies with greater gender diversity in leadership are 21% more likely to outperform their peers financially. Moreover, leadership effectiveness is not determined by gender stereotypes, but by the ability to adapt and excel in different contexts. According to the American Psychological Association, when leadership success is evaluated without gender bias, men and women are rated equally effective overall, dispelling the myth that one gender outperforms the other inherently. Leadership consultant and author Simon Sinek states, the best leaders are those who listen, inspire, and empower others regardless of gender. This reflects the principle that leadership is about individuals' qualities and not their gender. Pass to Non-Renessa.
Mr. Speaker, to conclude, I say leadership transcends gender. Effective leadership is about skill.
Order, please. Mr. Speaker, a point of order, please, sir.
Yes, Attorney General.
Yes, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the last time I checked the rules of debate, when you are referring to anyone else, you refer to them by their office, not on a first name basis, please, sir. Thank you.
That is correct. That is correct. I will acknowledge that. Representative Equity North.
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
I would like to remind you that when you're addressing members of the parliament, you address them by their title and not their first name. Okay?
Okay, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker,
yes.
To conclude,
you now may resume. You may resume.
To conclude, I say leadership transcends gender. Effective leadership is about skills and can be defined by qualities which both men and women can possess. A good leader comprises various skills which no individual or gender is born with. It is not a birthright, but a complex rule consisting of skills and capabilities which can be developed and learned in the process by any individual who decides to undertake the responsibility. We cannot assume that men make better leaders than women just because we have seen a lot more successful male leaders than women. We have to remember that the opportunity for women to portray themselves as great leaders was scarcely presented, and despite that fact, we have seen many great women leaders among us. Such claims with limited information or unequal evidence can only be alleged. Mr. Speaker, it is imperative that we embrace inclusivity and judge leaders based on their actions and impact, not their gender. Men do not make better leaders than women. People make great leaders through integrity, vision, and a commitment to those they lead. Leadership is not a question of gender. It is a reflection of human potential. By tying leadership to gender, we overlook what truly matters: a leader's ability to connect, inspire, create meaningful change. Great leaders come from all backgrounds and genders, proving that leadership is and always will be a human quality. Leadership is about leveraging individual strengths, fostering collaboration, and adapting to the needs of the situation and your group. Claiming one gender is better undermines the diverse talents that drive effective leadership. Before we close, I would like to leave you with this quote by Justin Trudeau, the Prime Minister of Canada, who once said, "Gender equality is not only an issue for women and girls. All of us benefit when women and girls have the same opportunities as men and boys. And it's on all of us to make that a reality. Our sons have the power and the responsibility to change our culture of sexism." Thank you.
Thank you very much for your contribution, Representative of Equity North. All right, we will now resume. The moderators will now resume to the assessment period, where we will return and provide you all with your scores. Thank you.